So next thing we're going to look at is just some of the terminology related to document structure. So we already saw semantic HTML in the previous video and what that means. Structure versus layout. So the structure is like, the elements that you've used on your page. The layout is how we arrange that to visually appear. And we learned what the document object model is, model of the objects in the document. And document flow. So it's how things, lay out on the page and in what order do they hit the page. And so default display, some stuff have block level, like some things are, their display default is block, some stuff is inline. And it's all about how they stack up and line up on the page. So it's the arrangement of page elements as defined by positioning statements and the order of HTML statements. That is how the different elements take up space and arrange themselves around each other. So that's one definition of document flow. How a page is presented when you do nothing to it with regard to structural styling. Browsers display content in the order that it is encountered. Top stuff first, preceding content lower down. The normal way that the elements will display as they're written in the HTML file, which, as you know, is from top to bottom, as in a block level element takes up an entire width of the page, and next element coming after it within the document then gets displayed beneath it, and so on and so forth. So we're going to see document flow is like Tetris, just blocks stacking up one after another, right? So we've got our structure, which is how we lay those out in the document, and then we have the layout, which is how we'll use CSS to lay them out. And then we have document flow, which is like how they'll just lay out without any, the order in which they lay out. Does that make sense? So you'll hear those phrases. So I just want to kind of make sure you're clear on those phrases, because you'll hear things about things being taken out of the document flow. And so that's important to know. Then we have content sectioning and content categories. So let's just take a look at that and see what those are. Content sectioning, content categories. So content categories and font, HTML element reference. So here's an element reference, right? So we have the main root, which is HTML. We have document metadata, which is like link or meta or style or title. That's all up in the head, right? And then we have sectioning root. So the body represents the content of an HTML document. And content sectioning elements allow you to organize document content in logical pieces, right? Here's a section of content. Use the sectioning elements to create a broad outline for your page content, including header and footer navigation and heading elements to identify sections of content, right? So we'll say, here's the header area, here's the footer area. And what that looks like is, let me just copy this, and we'll call this 39 and structure. Copy that. Go to. So what that would look like is we're going to have our header area, and we'll have our footer area, right? And then in between we might have main. That's our main area. And so just by looking at those tags, you start to see the structure of the document. And those tags in and of themselves convey meaning. And another word that we could use for meaning is semantic. So header, main, footer. We're starting to create the structure of our document. We have different areas, section areas, for content. And those areas have meaning. So content sectioning. If we look here, footer, header, I don't see main, but okay. They also have footer, header, aside, article, address, H1 through H6, H group, nav, and section, just the section element. Let's look for main and see what it says about main. Where's main? Text content is under main. So it's text content. Content sectioning. Use HTML text content elements to organize blocks or sections of content placed between the opening, body, and closing tags. Blocks or sections of content, right? Important for accessibility and SEO, these elements identify the purpose or structure of that content. So I might try to find something up here right? Instead of main there, maybe, because it sounds like this is for a main section, and then main is more for text, right? So maybe I'd have it like that. That's the main content of the page is in that first section, okay? So part of our job as people who build web pages is to know which elements we use in which places and try to find the most meaningful element for the content that we're describing. Then the other thing, so when in our outline there was content sectioning and then there's content categories. So we looked at content sectioning right here. And then here's this thing about content categories. Every HTML element is a member of one or more content categories, which group elements that share characteristics. This is a loose grouping. They help define, describe categories, shared behavior, and their associated rules. So let's look at these. So metadata content, flow content, sectioning content. Again, sectioning content, we saw content sectioning right there. And here we have article aside nav section, and we have article aside nav section, and article aside nav section. We also have header and footer, right? So that's the sectioning content. And if we look at this diagram right here, we see, okay, right, all elements are pretty much flow elements. And then here we have sectioning content. So everything that's a sectioning content is also a flow element, right? And then up here we have heading content, right? That's another one. So there's flow content. It's all this stuff. And in flow content, we'll also find article and aside, right? Because they're both part of flow content and sectioning content. Does that make sense? And then let's look at heading content. H1 through H6 and H group. That's our heading content. And then let's look at, you know, the next ones and the other ones. Metadata, right? Those are the link, meta, script, style, title. And then we have phrasing content, which is like, I don't know, let's find one. B for bold, abbreviation, ABBR, abbreviation. Represent abbreviation originally provides a full description for it. Or sample text. Or, you know, input, right? Or image, right? So that's some phrasing content. Interactive content, palpable form associated content. So that's kind of what this little diagram means. It's just a way of categorizing which elements are part of which groups. And the point of what we're doing here is understanding new HTML elements and which ones to use where. So we've taken a pretty long look at CSS, a couple of weeks, and now we're jumping into kind of coming back to HTML. Last thing you should know is that there's this HTML outline algorithm. Don't use this, right? So you'll find this sometimes if you get really deep into this stuff. There are currently no known implementations of the outline algorithm, right? Authors are advised to use heading rank H1 through H6 to convey document structure, okay? So as you create your thing, this will be like H1, we are about this, you know? And then down here, I might have an article, and inside that article there might be a couple of sections. And inside each section, article, inside each section, maybe there's H2. And inside that H2, something else, right? Number. So, you know, the main thing is about this, and then we have, you know, some lower ranking headings. So when search engines look at this page, they'll know that this page is about this. And then there's sub-information about these things. So you use the H1, H2, H3, 4, 5, 6 to convey the outline of your document. How many people feel a little bit overwhelmed? Okay. So let's look at some use cases in the next video.